Good morning, everyone. This is Jeffe Kennedy, author of epic fantasy romance. I'm here with my first cup of coffee. Ah, delicious. Today is, say it with me, people, it is Friday. Woohoo! February 21st, 2/21/25. Lots of great options for catching cool times today. Get those small joys where you can. How are you all doing? I hope you're doing well. Uh, I know, I know that the crazy times are hard on a lot of people. So hope you're plugging along. I myself am plugging along. Exciting news. I don't know if you all saw. I mean, we knew that they're making a TV series of our favorite antisocial cyborg Murderbot. And they announced yesterday, actually, I saw Martha Wells, the author, announce that the show will debut on Apple on May 25th. So there's much rejoicing over that, big excitement, um, and of course, trepidation too. I'm just really hoping they won't turn it into just a basic sci-fi shoot 'em up. And I've been having that conversation with several of my friends. Uh, and I want to talk more about adaptations and how that works. Because I was lamenting with a friend of mine who's a big fan of Murderbot, and he was saying that, expressing the same reservations. He was saying, I don't know how they're going to do it because the internal monologue is so important to those stories. That is the heart and soul of those stories. If you have not read them, um, yeah. And so, when you have internal monologue, you can, apparently I'm just going to just go right into this, and then I'll talk about progress and stuff at the end. Um, this is what I get for being disorganized. Let me tell you a little progress things, and I promise I will loop back to this. So I'll even make a note of where I was. There, if you're on video, you can see I even made a little sticky that says mbot int dia options. We'll see if Jeffe 5 minutes from now remembers what all those abbreviations mean, since I'm famous for leaving myself notes that I don't remember what I meant. So exciting news. We sold Hungarian rights to, I wanted to say to Murderbot. I wish I'd written Murderbot, to Never the Roses. So that's exciting. It's not a whole lot of money, and I have to share this all with you. I think it's kind of funny. Took me a moment to find it. I know no time passed on your end. This is why the stories with time travel are always kind of funky to do. But when I said, well, it's not a lot of money, it's not an amazing offer, but no reason to say no, was basically what I said. And she said, well, that amount of money in a small territory like Hungary is really not bad. A lot of the smaller Eastern European countries offer much more modest advances, so I say we take it and run, LOL. And so, yeah, then I felt kind of chastened. It's like, okay, yeah, small Eastern European country, and they offered me nice money for it. So I guess better than normal. So we'll take it. The big news for me since Monday, for those of you who follow intently along, is I stopped working on Strange Familiar. I had gone pretty slowly at the beginning of the week, and I passed the Act 2 climax, and now I'm not 100% sure what happens next. And I know that some of you, like my friends, are probably out there being snarky, as is your wont, and say to me, well, gee, Jeffe, isn't that always the case that you don't know what comes next? And yes, admittedly, that is true. But there are times where there's a fork in the road and I'm not sure what the character should take. So I had an okay start to the week. Tuesday was not as good as Monday. I could feel it slowing down. And I try to talk about this when this happens because I know a lot of you want a better answer from me than I give. Um, how do I know when it's time to stop? And it's a gut thing, it's an intuition thing, but I could feel that the story was poised and I wasn't sure what they should do next. And I really have to finish listening to that audiobook, which I've kind of been bulking on too. And sometimes if I bulk at something, I trust myself that there's a reason for it. And that probably comes down to a whole lot of this. And I probably give this same advice over and over. Uh, and it's the only advice I have to give, is that you have to get so that you are so honest with yourself that you know when you're being lazy or when you are being, what do I say, procrastinating, when you're letting the dread get to you, um, when it's not an honest intuition, but is instead some kind of emotional jingle jangle. That's a technical term. Be careful using it at home. Uh, but there are times when your intuition is telling you you need to refill the well, you need to give this time. Uh, in this case, I had this other project, this revision that I need to do. Uh, Probably if I was only working on this one book, then I would have found a way to push through. I might have like gone back to listen to the audiobook. I might have kept chipping away at the wall, but it can go slowly. And on Wednesday morning, I started out and I like got 23 words, and I could tell I was at that chipping at the wall part. And sometimes it works really well for me to keep chipping at the wall and break through. Uh, because I had this revision to work on, and that was you. For those of you who go to the optometrist, you know how like sometimes they show you the two things side by side and they're like, which one's brighter? Which one's more in focus? And it was like all of a sudden, this second project, this revision of A Rose in the Mirror went whoom. That's an audio representation of it, like gaining brightness, and I could feel the energy behind it. And it was like, this wants to be worked on. And so I thought, okay, then that's my decision. I'm going to let Strange Familiar simmer. I'm going to turn my attention to this revision because that's where the story brain's wanting to go. And the revision is actually going great. My editor had suggested cutting a whole lot of one POV at the beginning, and I did that. And it was about 5,000 words. So, but it's fine. And I rearranged some chapters. So on Wednesday, I did all of that. And I only got through like 8 pages of revision. And I need to do I need to do a lot a day. Like at least I predicted it'll be 20. I'm hoping it'll be more. We'll see when I start to get into writing this third POV that I'm going to introduce. But I'm still hoping I can get both done on time. But the revision is definitely the right thing to be working on. It feels good. Yeah, I got through those 8 pages doing all that cutting and rearranging of the first few chapters. And now yesterday went back to the beginning to see if it even read right, because I'm having to now, of those 5,000 words that I cut, I'm now having to weave information in, right? And I made it through like 24 pages yesterday, I think. Let's look. Would help if I looked at the correct book. I made it through 25 pages. So, feeling good about that. I think, and I can see now, I think I may have been grumpy sounding about this revision before. Um, I, well, those of you who listen regularly, which I do think is most of you, you heard when I was kind of disappointed about the editorial meeting and feeling like maybe I screwed this book up. But I can see now, and longtime listeners will be laughing at me because I do this every single time, I think. this was the path that I needed to travel, that I needed to find out these things that I found out about these characters. And now coming back with this revision, this is the best part of revision, is when it feels like you're moving things around and adjusting the emphasis of certain elements, and it crystallizes, and it's feeling like that. It's crystallizing. And now I think this might actually be a pretty good book. So that's great. I'm feeling happy about that. Uh, I'm going to get this revision done. I'm going to really focus on that and see if I can get it completed. Go back to Strange Familiar. I've just got 20,000 words left on Strange Familiar. I'm going to have to do a little bit of revising, but I think, knock on wood, it should be pretty fast revising. I just have to layer in a few things. It's not like this particular revision, which is going to require quite a bit of work. So kind of circling back to that thing of how do I know, how, or more importantly, how do you know, right? Because that's the question you all have, is like, when are you giving in to the emotional jingle jangle and not putting in the work? Because we certainly know all those people who like want to write their novel and don't. And I'm probably, I don't mean to minimize by calling it emotional jingle jangle. There's a difference between depression, having difficulties in your life, having stresses that you are trying to work through or around, and the kind of emotions that get in the way of getting the work done. That's the jingle jangle, is where it's like, oh, I don't want to, I'd rather watch this movie, I'd rather read this book, I'd rather, go out and play in the sunshine because it's spring here. Those are the kinds of things that get in the way. But it just takes work over time. That's the I learned a long time ago, the literal translation of Kung Fu, if you've studied martial arts, that Kung Fu means work done slowly over time. And we tend to want to do things fast in our culture. We tend to want things to be done already. We want to use Chat GPT to write our book for us. But working through that emotional jingle jangle, figuring out what's real and what isn't, what to listen to and what to discard, that's all part of the growth of being a creator. That's part of what we're doing this for in the first place, because we could otherwise be in banking, right? So that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at on these things. So now let's go back to talking about shows and creative control, because I'd actually had a note already to talk to you about this stuff. And here I am going back to my sticky note. Murderbot, interior dialogue, internal dialogue. You basically have, if you're making a film, TV or what have you, of a story that is very heavily focused on interior monologue, you have only a couple of options. You can do the dreaded voiceover, which I call the dreaded voiceover because very often the voiceover does not work. It is an over-the-top approach. It can be a ham-handed approach. But the voiceover, you all are probably familiar with this. It's like when you see, they show you let's say the meadow, and the young girl is walking through the meadow, and then you get that voice of God, we call it sometimes, the voiceover, where she goes, I was 7 years old the summer that I learned that not everyone is a good person, that kind of thing, right? I think I am not a filmmaker. I think that, so there's my caveat. The filmmakers will agree that the voiceover is a crutch, right? Because the medium of movies with the visual and the audio, including music, is meant to tell the story by showing you the story, whereas the voiceover is giving you this. It's like, let me blink these words in your face. But sometimes it works, and sometimes you really need it, especially if it's something with a lot of internal dialogue. Other options for that is to make the internal external. So you can have the person talk to themselves, which can work. And I kind of wonder if they'll do that with Murderbot. You can also give other insights. That's why people use things like diary entries. Star Trek, the opening captain's log, blah, blah, blah. Here we are in the something sector. That's an example of giving you some information that the character would otherwise know in their heads, but they use a device like recording it for history or telling it to other characters as a way to do it, to reveal what's going on in their head. The thing is with something like Murderbot, it's very, very personal. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. Hopefully they won't eliminate it altogether, but I've already gone over that part. But my friend, as we were chatting just this morning about our excitement over Murderbot and our trepidation that part will be lost or won't be done well, um, I said, yeah, but at least Martha got money, Martha Wells, and which is great. I know it's like we like money, we like writers getting money, and he said, yes, hopefully. I have to get this exactly. He said, here's hoping you get your own chance to lose creative control of a TV series, which I thought was sweet, right? Um, and it's funny, but it's also true. And I had already had this, as I mentioned, on my list to talk about because uh, the Hulu ACOTAR adaptation has been officially scrapped. ACOTAR, of course, being A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. It has been in development hell for a long time. There's a reason we call it development hell, because a lot of shows go there to die. I mean, a lot of shows never make it out of development hell. And it's interesting that the adaptation has been officially scrapped. There had been rumors for a while. And then I saw a piece saying that the gossip level news is that the author was difficult to work with, which can be code for a lot of things. And I know we're all sensitive to that now because, in the age of being clear about Me Too and Harvey Weinstein and all of these things, that women who would not capitulate to his sexual demands were labeled difficult to work with. But I have no idea. Don't know Sarah J. Maas. Have no idea what happened anyway like this. But my friend's quip about here's hoping you lose creative control of your own series is very true. It's like when you sell your story, your option to screen adaptation, you lose creative control. That's why they buy it from you. You wrote the book. You got to write the book. You got to have full creative control of your book. You do not get to have creative control of the show. And for those of us who have been around a while, we will remember the famous incident and great cautionary tale of Anne Rice and the adaptation of Interview with the Vampire, where she was hugely, hugely upset about Tom Cruise being cast as Louis or Lestat. Lestat, sorry, he was cast as Lestat. She was hugely upset about that and tried to stop it. Did a huge social campaign. This is a little bit, sort of quasi social media era. And she ended up sort of getting thrown off the show, really. And now they've come back and done some, we won't go into the whole adaptation drama of all of that. But the thing is whether or not the show retains everything that you want it to from the book is just not up to the author anymore. Like Martha Wells has gotten consult. She, I think I told you a while back, like she showed me pictures of Alexander Skarsgård dressed up as Murderbot on her phone because she'd gotten to go visit the set and everything. And it was cool to get to see those very unofficial shots. And it's exciting. But the the people who are the authors, let me be very specific, the writers, the authors who are very successful at selling their projects to, we'll just say Hollywood, to screen adaptation, are the ones who let go. And so I don't know, Sarah J. Maas is fairly young. She's fairly young in the industry as such things go. I don't know if she had anyone giving her advice on this. I don't know if she actually was difficult. But I did see one of the people who reported this said, well, good for her because she should hang on to having that adapted the way she, according to her vision. And really, no, she shouldn't. She shouldn't. That way lies misery. If you are so wedded to it being adapted in a very specific way, then you have to either do it yourself, which most of us don't have the not only not the wherewithal, but the skill to do. Um, Another cautionary tale is E.L. James, author of 50 Shades of Grey, was so upset by the adaptation of the first book and caused quite a bit of ruckus over that, and then took over the film adaptations for the second two. How many of you saw the second two of those movies? How many of you saw the first? Uh, the thing is it was not badly done. It just wasn't the book. And it's not going to be the book. That's why they call it a screen adaptation. Uh, so, so yeah, either do it yourself. You may not have the wherewithal. E.L. James had the wherewithal. I would say, arguably, she didn't have the skill. It's not the same skill, and there are people who are very good at directing and producing, and there are people who are very good at writing books. So stay in your lane, or be ready to learn the lane. Uh, and then your other option is don't sell it. You don't have to sell it. You don't have to take that sweet, sweet option money. Um, but it is an exercise in giving up control. And I've gone long again today. So on that note, I'm going to go get to work on my revision. Hope you all have a fantastic weekend. And I will talk to you on Monday. You all take care. Bye-bye.